Want to learn to draw fast? Step 1. Embrace existential dread. When you consider the average American lifespan and retirement age, we spend the first 18 years as dependents, a third of our lives sleeping, and 10 years working. Between commute, chores, and other adult obligations, the years we have left to divvy between hobbies, friends, and family, far less, and there's a good chance you'll be dilapidated and senile for a large majority of those years. My point is, you physically do not have the time left on this planet to be doing stuff like this. And the sooner you can put your lifespan into perspective, the easier it will be to let go. Your line work is wobbly, the lighting is off, your character has scoliosis. You're gonna have to look at your drawing in all its spine-breaking glory and commit. The biggest secret to drawing faster is simply learning to be okay with imperfections. A confident artist is a fast artist, and you know what they say about where confidence comes from. Experience or stupidity. And I sure am stupid. Now, I'm no Usain Bolt of art, not even close, but I've tailored my style in many ways to shorten my process since I'm juggling too many side quests. It's not a real tutorial on anything, really, nor am I telling you that speed is priority. They're just ways I personally find works for me. Number 1. Curb your details. Recognize what parts of your piece deserves detail and what doesn't. Keep in mind your focal point, concentrate your details there, and simplify the rest of the piece. You don't need to draw every clothing crease and hair strand. Simplify by dividing things up into its main shapes. I view objects as having 3 levels of detail, for example, starting from the overall shape of this dress to the largest folds and creases that define my character's movement and light source, and then the smallest creases. What is the lowest level of detail you can go down to, the bare minimum, to still convey your ideas? I find that limiting myself to the first 2 levels of detail and using the 3rd level very sparingly is enough to get my ideas across. Also, keep your shapes fluid and loose. I was taught to build bodies using rigid circles, rectangles, and connect the dots, which is fine for beginners. I'm not knocking on the tried and true. But if you're at a point where you're comfortable with the basics, start using larger, more fluid shapes to build your piece. Use negative space to define your shapes. Instead of building these legs with many different shapes, I draw it as an hourglass with cutout triangles. Sometimes I fuse fingers and legs together into one big flesh blob. Human brains are good at filling in visual gaps. It's enough to keep your shapes suggestive and let your viewer's brain do the rest. This will simplify your sketching process and make your poses more dynamic. If you can, try to avoid sketching out details if you're drawing something already within your comfort zone. Put down only what you need to get a sense for your pose and movement, and work in detail while lining and coloring. Begin with a clear trajectory for your outcome. I say trajectory because I think having an actual image in your head of a finished piece is a detriment, rather than stew over a blank canvas with those unblinking, milky slug eyes. Narrow your ideas down to pose and theme, and then begin gathering references. I find it super helpful to build a reference board using Milanote, who have also sponsored this video. It's a great tool for planning pieces and building visual libraries. Here's my board, which has my main themes, references, and thumbnail. I've also added some color swatches for my main color scheme and little reminders for my references. I like to keep my main board tight and focused, so I'm a fan of the board nesting feature where you can add boards within boards. It's helpful if you have a lot of references or you need to plan stuff out while avoiding visual clutter. Like this one, it's my planning board. Milanote has a web extension that lets you easily add links and photos directly to your board, so I can toss in whatever catches my eye and sort through it later. But if you're struggling to find photos on your own, they also have a lot of stock images to choose from. This is another subboard for thumbnail rows. You can add sketch boxes and change the canvas size, which I think is great for quick composition planning. They also have columns where you can group elements together. Here I've used it for my reference boards. This one was to compile my flower angles. You can draw directly on your board, so I traced over some images to help simplify the shapes. I also have one with my clothing references, with some notes pointing to specific design aspects. And if you don't want to make your own layout, they've got templates. I really like this design brief. I think it can be customized well for illustration projects. If you like to try Milanote for yourself, I'll have a link in the description where you can get started for free. It's available on web browsers or as a mobile app, and it functions exactly the same on both, which makes an iPad user happy. Thanks again, Milanote, for sponsoring. Now, you don't need to plan it that extensively. I'd actually call that overkill for a drawing of this scale, but you get my point. Having references handy, planning out central elements, putting down every brushstroke with purpose. 3. Change your brush. Brushes don't make the artist, but your 3-pixel wide G pen at 100% stabilization is not doing you favors. Using larger brushes will obviously make lining faster and more surface area, but if you prefer smaller brushes, try switching to one without pen pressure. I personally find that taking the variability out of your lines is going to result in less need to redo a stroke because whoops, this part was too thin or something. If you want that variability though, try a pen that changes size based on speed, not pressure. The faster your stroke, the thinner the line. It trains you to control your speed and discourages you from chicken scratching. Also, no brush stabilization. I understand some people have physical limitations that make a steady hand difficult, but for everyone else, the more comfortable you get with no stabilization, the more confident your lines will become and the less you'll rely on the undo button, which will drastically decrease the time you spend doing anything. But another alternative for those who still want pen pressure is to use textured brushes. The natural variability of my dry ink brush does great at hiding mistakes. Is that my hand wobbling or just the brush? No one knows, and if it's not a noticeable mistake, I don't have to redo it. By the way, if you don't use Clip Studio and you want similar brushes for your program, ask the comments. I have no idea. I'm sure someone will help you find dupes. Minimize your process. Start nuking steps. Keep your workflow simple. For me, this means often skipping the clean sketch and going straight to line work. Since I use a thicker textured brush, I have a lot of leeway during the lining process, so I don't feel a need to map out details in my sketch. Also, don't use excessive layers. You do not want to give yourself the option to go back and change things. Not to mention, it's time-consuming to organize and navigate. If you forgot a detail or notice a finger is missing or something, paint over it with a new layer on top of everything else. And if you're a painter, skip the line work entirely and start working directly off your sketch like I'm doing here. I'm not a painter. I am suffering. Is rendering the thing that's slowing you down? Me too. Fun fact though, you can just not do it. There are tricks to make your art look finished even without complex shading, and that's using texture, gradients, and contrast to create the illusion of detail. When you break down some of my drawings, they're pretty bare bones, simple lines and simple cell shading. Instead of spending time manually rendering in detail, I cheat my way into making it look interesting. I've said this before, but textured brushes are great for both lines and coloring. When the line work itself is a point of visual interest, you can get away with fewer details in your rendering. Use textures for coloring and shading too. You don't have to get technical with them. Sometimes if I feel something looks empty, I just pick up a textured brush and scribble. And if you're looking for a super simple way to add texture, just use an actual texture layer. Stick it over your art and set to overlay. Or if you want to get real spicy, channel that Y2K glitter aesthetic. I like to put glitter textures on top of my lines as a fun accent for shiny objects and lighting. Gradients! They can help with ambient lighting and keep objects from looking flat. You don't have to do anything drastic. Most of them you can see are actually very subtle, but it helps to add some depth. Put some gradients in your line work too while you're at it. Up your contrast. This can be through values, colors, or using a mix of soft and hard edges. Sometimes it's not that you're lacking detail, you're lacking contrast. Just a quick darkening of values or saturation can be enough to fix it. So if you're looking at a piece and feeling like something's missing, instead of spending time adding more stuff, just try upping your contrast first with layer modes or the blur tool and see if that fixes your problem. As a bonus, here's the Miscellaneous tab, a collection of other small things that make my life easier. Clip Studio has a layer effect that creates an outline to anything on that layer. I use this to quickly add foliage and clothing patterns, though I've seen people use it for hair. And in general, too, just learn more about your program. I know Clip Studio has a lot of auto actions, color correction, filters, whatever. I don't know how to use a lot of it, but there's plenty of tutorials, and if it fits in your workflow, take advantage of it. No such thing as cheating with art programs, it's all just a part of digital art. Adding a border to shadows can make simple cell shading stand out more, particularly with close-up shots. Coloring goes by so fast when you block out everything while lining. I try and be intentional about where I color my lines too, like where the lighting hits. I love the lasso fill tool, lets you easily block in shading and colors. I also like using this for foliage, especially flowers. For some reason, you know, adding random sparkles seems to bring any piece together. Glitter. I love glitter. Yippee!